welcome back to episode 14 of the Women's Cricket Podcast, the place where we talk about all things women's cricket. Neha joining us like always, and we've got Jeet, a friend of cricket.com, joining us after 4 to 5 months post the World Cup, I'd imagine. Kaisa chal raha hai, Jeet? Excited about today's episode, excited with what you've seen so far in the WPL.
Quite excited. It's first of all very good to be back in this time on a podcast. So that's something completely different. But yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. I missed a chunk of the WPL to be fair, but luckily, with all my commitments done, I was able to catch up on the business end. So it's been good. I've enjoyed the last week, watching all of this women's cricket. Good week as well, knowing that, it was quite close, at least at the start of the week. Jahan kuch pata nahi tha who's going to qualify since it was a bit of a tight race. Last one, the white pata hi tha, teen ho gaye for it. It was all about the seedings. But yeah, anyway, it's good to be back. And the two of you have been doing a tremendous job with the podcast. So good on you all for that.
GPay kar dunga aapko paisa. Thanks for the compliment. But of course, it's been a fantastic week that way. At least the games have been really close and well fought, so that was great to watch. But yeah, kal ka game finally some solace seeing RCB win the game after what's been an eternity.
Absolutely. It was such a humdinger of a game till the last ball. You felt, could Mumbai do something potentially from here? And a massive props man to the way Mumbai really fought back and actually made a match out of it. RCB somewhere, they kind of invested that last over. The death overs part to Elise Perry, and then she was unfortunately at the expensive end, but she's still able to get those wickets. But the way Mumbai was fighting back, I think that was remarkable. This is a match that's happening in Mumbai, yet the kind of support you see for RCB was, I think, as much as all the Mumbai Indians fans say, sea of blue and all of that, people were chanting RCB till the very end. So that really goes to show you the kind of fan base they have and everything. But that aside, even the interesting trend, right, at Brabant so far, teams batting first, putting up totals that they're actually able to defend, which is very different from the trend we have seen so far of teams, chasing winning. So that's been a pleasant sign. But yes, RCB has won and finally ended their campaign on a win. So yeah, that's definitely good news.
Yeah, that's definitely been a welcome change that way, to be honest. Yeah, the last 3 games have been won by the team batting first and not the toss-winning team. Kam se kam, it's in short, it's not so skewed towards the team winning the toss, of course. But yeah, in terms of RCB and their fandom, I feel yesterday's game was just the final nail in the coffin. If anyone had any question about, nahi, dusre teams ke paas bhi utna bada hai, craze and all, I'm sorry, that's been taken care of. And even I've been very, very, very surprised, to be honest, because it's almost unheard of. Many यहाँ पे देखा ही नहीं है, like across cities, the way RCB is supported in the WPL especially. In fact, the game we went for in the stadium, I kid you not, my first reaction was, I don't think I've seen even the IPL side get this much fanfare and attention during their games. It was crazy. It was like beyond comprehension. I don't know if it was the trophy, if it was what, but yeah, it was fantastic to watch yesterday as well. And yeah, finally those 2 points, not that it really matters, good to see them get that and at least end their campaign on a high. Of course, Danni, I'm happy to have you back as well, of course. Yeah, time to talk about a bunch of things that we've seen so far and also get Neha and Jeet's thoughts on them. Let's start with probably with the knockout fixture, if I may say so. Kal, of course, Mumbai will be taking on Gujarat Giants. Delhi will be have been through to the final, so they will be playing the final on Saturday. They will just wait for who they face. Jeet, pehli baat to top 3, Delhi, Mumbai, Gujarat. Did you have that on your bingo card? Bit surprising. What did you make of it in general?
No, not entirely surprising, especially when the DC and MI have been the two consistent performers every season. And even this season, they had the squad to make it through. So they don't come as a surprise. Gujarat, as compared to, say, RCB and UP Warriorz, again had a much stronger squad that they had assembled this time around. There were quite a few chinks in the previous 2 seasons. So this season, they had done a fantabulous job in adding the likes of Deandra Doughton. Beth Mooney is back in form as well. So she's delivering. He, of course, being Ashley Gardner as well, who was finally stepped up. So everything was clicking for them. And they had a much better squad. So not entirely surprised. Perhaps a tad surprised by the kind of seedings because, look, I wouldn't say it's been a perfect season for any of the teams, including DC. I know they finished at the top, but even they were kind of murky to begin with, and a couple of results went in their favor when they could have easily lost it. So it was not a perfect season for all of them, but still, fairly on the expected lines given the 3 teams that have qualified. देखते हैं क्या होता है final. I still feel it's kind of lopsided as to who's going to win, but we shall wait for that.
Yeah, for those of you watching on Spotify, I was chuckling and Neha was probably chuckling as well because she knows very clearly what my thoughts on DC were. happy to know that Jeet also concurs with me. But of course, we will get into the nitty gritties in due course. But yeah, Gujarat making it for the first time to the playoffs, it bodes well for the tournament, right? Just seeing, each of these sides now make it through to the top three in the first cycle. It'll be great if a side like Gujarat also ends up winning the tournament, for all we know.
Absolutely great signs, to see a team like Gujarat come to just look at their WPL 2023 and 2024, ending right at the bottom of the table. Again, it was not exactly indicative of the kind of strength that the squad possessed, but they kind of found themselves in that sort of a situation because of, a lot of struggles in getting the squad composition right, the playing 11 right, backroom stuff, kind of having a not so great say in how things exactly play out, and they were plagued by injuries and a lot of things happening back in the background. So as Jeet rightly said, the way Ash Gardner has led the troops and managed to get them to this position is extremely admirable and really nice to see. I mean, as an RCB fan, it definitely hurts to not see RCB, but then to see a new team like Gujarat, kind of make it in and actually stake a claim for the title, because right now they are in that winning momentum, and I think as recently they also defeated Delhi, right? So that again, definitely bodes well, and really excited to see how they kind of progress. And yeah, I think the eliminator is definitely not going to be an easy one for Mumbai. I know they have this very like Zameen Asman ka farak type. They lead like what? They defeated Gujarat in every single match, right? They have some 6-0, okay, 5 times.
Oh, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0.
6-0, right? So I know that psychological advantage is definitely there, but really impressed to see how Gujarat have performed. A lot of players have stepped up at the right time. I think in our watch alongs as well, we were talking about how, they kind of lost it at the auction, with some not so great purchases, but I think the domestic core has really come through. So have the overseas players. So right now, you just see a mix of all of these factors, really boding well, and just hoping Gujarat can, make the most of it and actually stake a claim in the final. Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of an interesting case, Gujarat Giants. The first two seasons, of course, they were horrendous. But a bit of hindsight, of course, involved in this. They were plagued by injuries in both the seasons. First season, Beth Mooney. Second season, Kashvee Gautam. We also saw the likes of Lauren Sheetal also missing out. And they had to bring in reinforcements who weren't exactly the greatest. And this season as well, like the fact that they, entered the season with the squad they picked at the auction, that just went a long way in ensuring that कम से कम इनका जो thought process था, they can go through with it. Whatever they thought of at the auction, they cannot try and actually implement this. That definitely played a very big role. On top of that, the additions of Deanta Doughton and even Kashvee Gautam, both have been fantastic shots in the arm. Priya Mishra also finally getting some game time. Harleen Deol playing the way she did. I know the first season she did have a couple of good knocks, but again, in a chase against a side like the Delhi Capitals, given the kind of bowlers they face, that was really good to watch and pleasantly surprised to see that knock. So happy for them. But of course, let's just take a few comments before we go through. Starting off with this, so this is a very interesting point that Sports Fan has made here. Jeet, let me throw this to you. Hey guys, is playing the final directly an advantage or disadvantage? How will DC overcome this time? I'll actually preface this with a bit more information. First couple of weeks between Feb 14th and Feb 28th, DC played 7 games. From March 1st to March 15th, 2 weeks, this is going to be just their second game. And on top of that, the winner of the eliminator would have played on the same surface at least twice if it's Gujarat and thrice if it's MI. So clearly, Delhi might sort of be at a disadvantage here, Ajit.
Yeah, they would be. I mean, generally, you would associate a direct qualification into finals as a massive advantage, right? You're quite relieved here. Directly finals of Portugal. We have skipped the eliminator. We don't need to go through that. But like you mentioned, I mean, it's sort of unfair on DC. Not only a massive gap between the last game and now, playing after a long time, and that's going to be straight away the finals of the WPL. Also, the venue where they'll be playing for the first time this season as compared to whatever you mentioned about GG and MI having decent game time at this venue. I think, that is where I was, kind of talking that it's kind of lopsided in terms of who would start as favorites. Doesn't matter whether it is GG or MI, but they would have a significant advantage going into this particular game because, look, I mean, DC would have watched all these games, obviously, but they would know the conditions as well. But come at the final, abhi kuch alag pitch nikal gaya, kuch alag conditions ho gaye. The pitch behaves entirely differently to what these games have been. Then it could turn quite horribly bad for them. So it's kind of wait and watch. But I still think GG or MI, whichever the team is that will be facing these finals, would have a much bigger advantage heading into it.
Interesting. Okay, and of course, since हमने eliminator की बात छेड़ ही दी है, Neha, let's start off with that. MIGG, sure, MI has won the previous 6 encounters. We all remember last season as well. MI RCB, the Eliminator. MI had defeated RCB thrice before that, and then they did end up losing the Eliminator. Same was the case with DC RCB, the final. So, again, past is not exactly indicative of how tomorrow's match is going to be played. But how are you looking at this? Bribon, MI, a high-flying GG side who would be extremely confident of playing the first ever knockout game.
Yeah, I think GG is certainly flying, with a lot of confidence. They've gotten a lot of their bases right. I think just, extrapolating my point from before that a lot of the Indian domestic stars are stepping up, right? You have the likes of Bharti Fulwal, giving you those absolute firecrackers at the end with those amazing, amazing knocks. You also have Harleen Deol, who's kind of, hopefully the peak doesn't just end up tapering. It continues to, deliver some good sort of performance. So that is happening. I don't know if Simran Sheikh will be a part of it or not, but just looking at the Mumbai GG, the previous match as well, Mumbai just won by a minuscule 9 runs, right? They too have been tested. It's not like it was an easy, walk in the park sort of a win for Mumbai. So I really believe that Mumbai will be tested. They will have to, put their A game. A point I think Jeet also probably tweeted, and we also spoke about, right? That Mumbai, when they come to bowl, they have like 4 overseas bowlers delivering those 4 overs, and like you almost have like 15, 16 overs of just overseas players doing the bulk of the job. But I mean, they have been slightly off. Like Hayley Matthews, yes, she has done well. Amelia Kerr in patches has again sort of performed. But then I really think Gujarat can challenge Mumbai. It shouldn't be that difficult. And I'm not sure if the home advantage will play to Mumbai's advantage that much. I mean, yeah, I know the crowds will come in, swarm into the stadium, do MI and all of that. But then it really depends on the kind of performance you put in. And I think GG is, probably well stacked to actually challenge Mumbai. And the last game clearly gave us an indication of that it's not going to be an easy one.
I mean, if you look at that, Jeet, even in the last game that Neha mentioned, they did put up a more than decent fight, despite losing each of their, sort of star players fairly early on. The likes of Bharti Fulmali coming good for them and, taking them till the end. It'll keep them in good stead tomorrow.
It would. I mean, I would still say GG's one of those teams who would not mind losing a couple of wickets early because that's the kind of batting depth they've got. They've got Fulmali coming in at probably 6 or 7. Then they've got Simran Sheikh. So that's extraordinary batting depth to have. I know Kashvee Gautam was promoted in last game, but वो भी usually नीचे batting करती है. So that's an exceptional batting depth that they've got. But otherwise, look, I mean, even Simran Sheikh was the most expensive player, right, in the last auction. So again, she's somebody who opens as well. But where this could be interesting would be the kind of batting order that they would probably offer this particular game. In the last game, it was understandable that they were looking to chase it down within the 18 overs to topple DC and stake a claim for a direct qualification into the final. So they kind of changed their batting order there and sent in Kashvee. But in the next game, probably we might either see Simran Sheikh opening. It might happen. Maybe Dayal and Hemlata comes into the place of Simran Sheikh and opens. Or you might see Harleen, they will probably, being put as an opener alongside Beth Mooney. So it kind of remains to be seen. But again, it's a very good team. Most of the batters are in form. The one thing that has changed significantly from, say, season 1 and season 2 is that most of their overseas batters are delivering. First season, like you mentioned, they were kind of affected by the injury. Beth Mooney was out in the first game itself. So the season was pretty much done and dusted there. They, kind of dealt with a massive blow there. Season 2, they had again Beth Mooney who stepped up. She scored like 280 odd runs. And the next best was Laura Woodward at the 160. So there was a huge gap. There was nobody else who kind of stepped up and supported Beth Mooney. But this season, they've got Mooney amongst runs again. They've got Ashley Gardner stepping up. They've got Harleen Deol stepping up. And they've got other players, kind of chipping in with their performances. Simran Sheikh, a bit of a cameo last game. Bharti Fulmali, a crucial knock as well. So they've got other batters stepping up. The bowling is kind of firing as well. It's still a little bit iffy. But by itna batting depth, I don't think they need to worry about it a lot. Just imagine they've got Ashley Gardner walking at number 4 and playing the way she is. She's completely changed her game this time around. 17 fours and 17 sixes out of like, say, 230 odd runs scored. So that's 170 runs out of the 235 boundaries. Then they've got Phoebe Litchfield. Then they've got Rihanna Dawson. So I think it's very well sorted. And a team that does not need to worry if they lose a couple of wickets early.
Yeah, definitely. And I would still stand by having Phoebe Litchfield at number 6. I know there's been a lot of calls for Phoebe Litchfield to be sent up the order and all. Bhai, mat karo. You need her there. That's not just her best position, that's why she can add a lot of value for Gujarat Giants. So again, they will run the risk of sort of looking eerily similar to Emma in that they look very top heavy. For agar wickets chale gaye jaldi, then you won't have too many, in the dugout to come and rescue your side. But Jeet, you mentioned a bunch of options there. I'll first throw it open to Neha. Who do you think will open for GG tomorrow? You saw Kashvee Gautam open yesterday, but the day before. Fair to say that's not a long-term strategy for them. So do you stick to that? Do you go to someone like a Simran Sheikh, bring in Dylan Hemlata, Phoebe Litchfield? In fact, I remember someone mentioning, in fact, pretty known accounts mentioning Laura Wolfart being bought back because she's an experienced campaigner and all of that. Kafi naam to hai yaar. So Neha, who are you going ahead with?
Yeah, honestly, this is a tough one, but I think it's easier to do the elimination method here. So Laura definitely doesn't feature in that playing 11 because it again, takes up an overseas slot, and you'd probably want someone like a Phoebe in that batting order. So I don't know if you mentioned this option, but I'd still want someone like a Hurleen opening if that is possible. That kind of gives you an extra option still to bring in someone like Simran later on, because Simran again to open. I don't know, like, will the synergy be there with Beth Mooney to open and kind of, do the thing? And it's such an important match. And Harleen, again, I think knows how to, play that anchor sort of a game and then build her innings eventually. So I don't know, maybe I was thinking of Harleen itself, but Dylan Hemlata, no, guys. I mean, I think that's ruled out for me because she's been woefully out of form. She's had such a torrid run. I think her and Yastika Bhatia have both been like so disappointing. I'm really not mincing words because I had expectations. They were coming off like injuries, and they kind of had a point to prove and everything, but they clearly haven't done that. So Hemlata for this game is probably not going to make the cut, at least for me. But Kashmir, I think, was just an experiment for that game. Again, it's such an important match. Getting her to open may not be, possibly the best idea. So at least these are my 2 cents. But still thinking about this, yeah.
Anjeet, what about you? If you were a part of the think tank, Michael Klinker अगर आपसे पूछता कि यार बताओ किसको हमें open कराना चाहिए with Beth Mooney, how are you looking at this?
I'll probably go for Harleen Deol. Like Neha mentioned, by Dayalan is kind of ruled out given the kind of form that she has had for a long time now. And of course, we know it's still kind of puzzling that Beth Mooney saw something in her and she was very impressed, kind of get her in for the WPL and the Perth Scorchers, very aggressive and all that stuff. But no, she's been woefully out of form. Harleen is in form. And even in the last game, if you observe, she had like 4 or 5 boundaries in the first 7 or 8 balls. So she was off the blocks very quickly. I would go for that combination. Let Beth Mooney open and let Harleen Deol be there as no. Number 3 again could be a bit of an issue. But if Beth Mooney gets out, I would be more than happy to send in somebody like Phoebe Litchfield. If it is Harleen getting out, then I don't mind somebody like Simran Sheikh batting in number 3 because that is where she bats for Mumbai as well in the domestic. So she's used to that sort of role. It's something they can, of course, contemplate. I don't think whether they would probably follow that or not. For all we know, they might again go back to Dayalan Hemlata or kuch bharosa nahi hai. And to be fair, look, they've done splendidly well so far. So you don't want to do a lot of chop and change either heading into knockouts. One shot, you don't want to make so many changes, right, in the eliminator. So last mein, look, I could understand Kashvee Gautam ka rationale, but when you have the option of those players who are experienced as an opener and know how to kind of hit the gaps and find boundaries, whether it is Phoebe Litchfield, whether it is even Deandra Doughton, sending in somebody like Kashvee Gautam didn't make sense. She probably would have never faced a ball that swings. Opener to dur ki baat hai. So while she has the technique and the ability to find boundaries, we could see the way she was getting beaten. So thoda weird sa change tha. It was, I'm sure, only restricted to that particular game because 18 out mein chase karna tha. So that's why it came. But yahan par I don't see that happening. I personally would still go for Harleen Deol as an opener.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I would probably just look at it this way. I would still keep my options open based on whether we're batting first or second, because jitna bhi do games where yahan pe batting underlights in the second innings, especially with the new ball, has been a lot more difficult. And Mumbai has been the team, bowling second in both these games so far. So should that be the case again tomorrow, then I agree with both of you. Harleen should be the one opening. She is someone who can handle Shabnam Ismail. She can also sort of counter the swing, irrespective of whether she sort of counter attacks or just, consumes, absorbs the pressure. I think Harleen will be the person. But in case they do end up batting first, unlike the previous time they played MI, jahan pe the ball hasn't done so much, I don't mind sending someone like a Simran Sheikh. I would still hold on to Kashvee Gautam. my main reason is more than Kashvee Gautam not having faced any swing, which I completely agree with. That kind of pace is just a bit much. Yeah, an average speed of 115, 120 is not something any Indian batter would have ever faced. Like consistently, एक आध ball face करना और एक spell face करने में बहुत फर्क है. And that's where I think Simran Sheikh, the batter, is a lot more dispensable to this batting lineup than Kashvee Gautam. I think Kashvee Gautam can create a lot more damage should she come in at number 5, number 6, number 7, against the likes of some of the MI spinners, Amanjot Kaur and all of it. Simran Sheikh, jitna parso bhi humne dekha, was fairly iffy. Like, sure, she did score a few runs, but Kashmir, even in that brief stay she spent at the crease, looked fairly at ease. Agar ball move nahi kar raha hota, probably we could have seen a few more shots from her. So that's where I think probably Kashmir, the batter, will add a lot more value, lower down the order. Simran ko bhej do, dekho agar 5-6 ball khel bhi paaye to sahi hai, nahi to fir Harley number 3 pe to hai hi. So you don't have to do it, and I would probably just look at it that way. But fair enough. I mean, I also do agree with some of the opinions that have come in, quite a few. In fact, we'll take each of them, of course. I don't think they should experiment tomorrow, says Janvi. Open with Harleen and move everybody one position up seems the safest choice. For sure, mera bas bhaiya batting first mein, since the power play has been very good. Like the numbers clearly suggest that. Batting first teams in the 2 games so far played here average 48.5 and have scored at over 8 runs per over. Second innings mein, they've scored only 7 runs per over and the average goes down to 21. So clearly there's been a very big disparity, and Brabon, we know underlights movement bhi milta hai yahan pe. Shabnam Ismail agar second innings mein power play mein dal raha hai, it's always going to be a very tricky challenge to take care of. So yeah, Harleen would be their best bet in that sense. So yeah, I mean, that was my opinion on that. Let's see how do the Giants go about it. Like I said, quite a few comments. Let's just take these up before we move on to our next talking point. Gigi needs some powerful opening. So I think Simran can open the batting with Mooney, use the power play, because Harleen is also a similar batter like Mooney. Number 8, Simran is wasted. So open the innings with Mooney. Fair shout, money. I mean, I do agree with you there. So let us see how that goes. Arun, on the other hand, has a very left field choice. He says, I'd like to see Bharti fully open the innings alongside Beth. No harm at all considering the kind of form Hemratha has shown till now. Fulmali's power hitting could play a huge role in the power play for sure. Interesting. Haven't seen too much of her against high pace. Matlab high pace, I use it with great caution here. So pata nahi, but interesting shout. They can go with that. I know Akshay will disagree with my idea of opening with Fulmali, but no harm in springing a surprise to MI's plans with a dasher at one end, as Beth will maneuver the ball mostly. A great combo. I don't disagree with it, Arun. Matlab they can do it. They can definitely try it. It's just that probably a bit too extreme a choice right now, given that it's a knockout game. Had it been the last game of their league stage, where everything's done and dusted, experiment karne ka mauka, they probably could have, explored that choice. But I don't know if they'll do it. But fair shout. Matlab maine bhi Simran Sheikh ka naam liya, so that's perfectly fine. Last bit, let's take this question. Okay, it's a statement. I thought that was a question. GG should bat first if they win the toss and go big on the scoreboard, as they've got some bowlers in pretty decent form to defend a score of 180. I'll actually, convert that into a question. Jeet, last 3 games so far, the 2 in Mumbai and 1 in Lucknow has seen the team batting first win the game. Any merit? क्योंकि हमने हमेशा सुना knockout game pressure situation है, तो भाई हमेशा win the toss, bat first, और फिर वो pressure apply करो opposition पे. How are you looking at this?
Bat first, as simple as that. Even in the 2 games that we've had at the Brabant Stadium, heading into the first game, the record was very heavily skewed in favor of teams that were batting second. Of course, the due factor and all that stuff is there. But in women's cricket, scoreboard pressure will get to you. They are not a lot of experienced batters, right? All the Indian domestic batters, they don't have the experience of chasing big targets against quality bowlers. So, वहाँ पर वो struggle होने वाला है. But if you bat first and score in excess of 180, you always would be in the chance of defending it, no matter who the opponent is. If you are GG and facing MI, of course, you probably need an excess of 190 because MI have the kind of batting order to kind of chase anything below 190. And we have seen that. RCB did exactly that yesterday, getting to 199, and they were able to defend it. But from MI's perspective, if they can get to even that 180 mark, they can defend it. But like you mentioned, knockout says scoreboard pressure will get to you. I know they've got quite a Aussies to GG in their lineup, and they always prefer to bat first. But by experience, they know how to chase as well. But from GG's perspective, irrespectively, just bat first, score over 185 is what I would say. And I think they should be able to defend that ideally.
All right, देखते हैं how that goes about it. Neha, thoughts on that? What do you make of it?
Yeah, actually, here I was also thinking, the team winning the toss should bat first because both the teams' ke batting departments have been actually doing really well. Talking about Mumbai, I know a lot of people say, ki, yeah, they're so dependent on Nat Silverbrunt, kind of do the cleanup job and bail them out of trouble every single time. But you still have the likes of Harmanpreet Kaur. I hope Amelia Kerr also can kind of come through. I know opening is not her forte, and right now Mumbai does not have an option. So they're kind of using that, but even Mumbai's batting depth is pretty enviable. So even if they win the toss, they should probably bat first because they can put up a commendable total. At least if your batting is revolving around Nat Silverbrunt, you still know that you're in for a good 170. 180, and they can probably actually make a match out of it, get those early wickets of Gujarat and really challenge them. Even Gujarat, right, as Jeet and you have been mentioning that they have such an enviable batting depth. So I think even they would kind of fancy the chances to just go all out, put a really big total, and then put pressure on Mumbai. So yeah, again, kind of agree with you about that. Probably the team winning first should bat first, seeing the trend of how things have been. But again, guys, it's a knockout match, and pressure can really do funny things. So I wouldn't be surprised if the team winning the toss would be like, "Ha, chalo, let's just chase. Let's actually put pressure on the team that's batting first and probably chase it down with ease." So I wouldn't be surprised with either of the calls here.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's see. Yep, Jeet.
And there is one more perspective, an interesting perspective to kind of consider. For GG, you know that that top order is still kind of a bit shaky, barring Beth Mooney. So their engine is in the middle order, be it Ashley Gardner, Beth Mooney, or Phoebe Litchfield. For MI, they're top heavy, right? They've got Millie Kerr opening, they've got Nat Silverbrunt at number 3, they've got Hayley Matthews as an opener as well. So that is where it kind of makes sense for MI to probably chase, because तुम्हें पता है कि एक दो विकेट निकाल लिया बाद में with the wet ball defending it against Doughton, Gardner, Litchfield is going to be a big challenge. But for likes of GG, it will make sense to bat first, because while defending it, कि top team निकाल दिए within say even 10 overs, then you probably have the job done and dusted. So I think that's an interesting perspective to consider as well for both the teams.
Yeah, I mean, they'll also keep a keen eye on how the surface is going to be. And also, Dew so far hasn't really played that big a role. So fingers crossed, we won't see much of it tomorrow as well. Another interesting point for MI has been Amelia Kerr, the opener. Janvi was just saying that it's not necessarily worked. Gee, this is the chat we've also had off air. You've also tweeted about this. What have you made of it, firstly? And secondly, do you think there's any merit in them just going back to Yastika Bhatia at the top tomorrow?
Look, I don't know why they stopped Yastika Bhatia from opening. I know she's woefully out of form. She's not probably delivered as well as she was expected to as an opener. But for me, you kind of stick with her, no? The simple point here being that Yastika is somebody who times the ball well and hits the gap against pacers, whereas Millie Kerr is really strong against the spinners as compared to pacers. So that itself should tell you that where Yastika is bound to kind of succeed and where Millie Kerr is likely to succeed. I get it. Millie Kerr has the experience of opening. वो करती है domestics में. She's done that for the Wellington Blaze this season, and she did that for the Sydney Sixers as well in the WPL, which could have potentially influenced Charlotte Edwards to kind of stick with that kind of a thing, because Charlotte Edwards also happens to be the coach of the Sydney Sixers. So that is where it might have stemmed from. But for me, Millie Kerr as opener, even in the domestics for the Wellington Blaze, she does not dominate the power play, right? She's going to score runs. She's going to be consistent with that. But if you are unable to dominate as a national player, if you are unable to dominate the domestic bowlers by scoring at a high strike rate, then I don't think that's a good sign. You might have the average of 60 plus, you might end the tournament as a leading run getter. But if your strike rate is less than 110, then I'm sorry, I don't think you have dominated the proceedings, because quality might differ karta hai, national player and an uncapped player. So you should be dominating them. And you haven't quite got that from Millie Kerr. So I've never been convinced with that. If you're asking her to play the anchor role, I don't know. Yastika bhi kar sakti hai, so why do you need to chop and change that? And again, like I mentioned with Millie Kerr, she's exceptional against spin. And you are going to have a lot of overs of spin that will be bowled in the middle phase. So let her take on the spinners. Na? Probably even have her at 5, 6, 7. I don't mind. But her batting is not required. When it comes to the T20 format, when you think of Millie Kerr in the T20s, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm sure it's the bowling and not batting. And when it comes to 50 overs, it's the batting and not bowling. I think that pretty much tells you where she is in the T20 format. And I would have liked, MI to have kind of thought this through. And but I think Sydney Sixers all the influence hai yahan par, and you can't kind of help that.
I mean, interesting you mentioned that because she is a great proponent of the sweep shot, which is what makes us so good against spin as well. So in the middle order, it definitely makes a lot more sense. And given the way she's also started off, she's not someone, who sort of gets off the blocks very quickly. And that's where someone like a Yastika could have been more valuable. But Neha, you can see why Yastika, matlab, 13 chances, 13 innings in a row now since she last scored a 50. And that is saying something. So फेयर यस्तिका को उनको ड्रॉप नहीं करना था बट उनको ओपन भी नहीं कराना था. Do you think then someone like a Kamalini could have probably been given a shot at the top?
Exactly. I was just actually going to come to this, that if you were anyways planning to, get Yastika in the middle order or in the lower middle order, might as well get someone like Kamalini to open, right? Because we've seen the kind of I wouldn't call it heroics exactly, but we've kind of seen the performances she's put in that under 19 World Cup. She's been so good. That's the kind of position, that we've seen her sort of make the most out of. So if Mumbai really wanted to enforce the change, they should have probably done that. And kind of agree with Jeet too, that they should have probably just, persisted with Yastika and finished off the season with her as an opener, because again, bringing her down the order, I'm not sure she can add much value. It just upsets the entire batting order. But if Mumbai really wanted to enforce the change, probably bringing in someone like Kamalini would have made more sense. Agar Yastika ko bhi drop karna tha, to I'm not sure. Like they probably had what Amandeep Kaur, who's been in that squad for like 3 seasons, hasn't gotten an opportunity at all. But again, that kind of affects their batting combination side of things. They could, I don't know, like Mumbai could have done a lot more things. Like even we were talking in our watch-alongs about them not making the most of their Indian talent as well. Like Sanskriti Gupta, right? In last night's match, we really saw her tonk sixes for fun, man. If I don't know, like if she had probably more balls, I don't know what could have happened. The result could have really gone the other way. But then you see, right, they have a lot of potential, but Mumbai has been guilty of just not making the most of their talent. And it also is kind of reflective of Charlotte Edwards and how much she's not probably understood like the Indian players and the kind of skill sets and capabilities they bring in. So yeah, probably they could have persisted with Yastika, but now that they've brought in this change, I think they will continue using Amelia Kerr as an opener itself, and you will see this very imbalanced Mumbai Indians, which would still make sense because Maxima Brunt is doing the heavy lifting. So I don't think it's that much of a concern, but hopefully Amelia Kerr can sort of just get going with the bat, because I think they will kind of persist with her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because batting options so kafi sare, you see the likes of Amanjot Kaur, then Yastika, then Kamalini, then Sanskriti, all of them batting from 7 to 11, definitely out of their, usual position to say the least. So देखते हैं वहाँ पे क्या होता है. Amanjot probably has been batting slightly higher up. The chase against RCB working in her favor, and then from there she's actually done well even with the ball. Yesterday's spell comes to mind. The first few overs where she bowled fantastically well. Sanskriti Gupta, of course, a name I'll definitely be raving a lot more about in the future. One to watch out for. Even yesterday, I don't know if you guys noticed, there was this one ball she bowled to Elise Perry, 98 clicks. Previous ball 79. You could see that Elise was slightly taken aback. She wasn't expecting that change of pace. That was fantastic to watch. And yes, Jeet, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, so even with Kamalini, I think it's a very risky move because we haven't seen a lot of teams try out an uncapped player as an opener. The only team that really comes to my mind are the UP Warriors, right? I mean, when Shweta Sehrawat had a wonderful under-19 World Cup, she was roped in, she was picked up in the auction, and she was made to open, and it didn't work out well. The same thing happened last season with Vrinda Dinesh as well. It didn't really pan out well because it's a lot of pressure. And I won't be surprised if the same thing happens with Kamalini as well. It's way too early. So you'd rather want an experienced head to be opening. I know Yastika hasn't delivered, but she's still likely deliver for you more than somebody like Milikar or even Kamalini for that matter. Kamalini yaar wo thoda abhi bhi risk factor hai, and coming to knockouts, probably you don't want to do that. You don't want to put an inexperienced batter under so much pressure. Not to forget that if Kamalini opens by Ashley Gardner, it's going to be a big challenge. So probably stick with Yastika Bhatia. Where the benefit of that LHP RHP is somebody like Kashvee Gautam. Kashvee Gautam again wouldn't probably have that experience of bowling to that particular combination as a new ball bowler. So that is where she could err. And whenever you err, somebody like Hayley Matthews is going to cash in. Somebody like Yastika Bhatia is experienced enough to cash in. So, these are the kind of things that also need to be taken into consideration. So Probably I'd still just stick with Yastika Bhatia or Kamlini or Amelia Kerr.
All right, देखते हैं क्या होता है. I mean, I would imagine that MI won't, tinker too much with their top order, especially that they've, won the last time they played. Gujarat Shaw yesterday was an aberration, but they still ran RCB close in a chase of 200. So they'll, take the positives from that game and just move on. So I'm expecting Mealy Kerr to continue opening with Haley Matthews, irrespective of whether I like it or not. But yeah, that was that from the knockout fixtures and what we wanted to talk about tomorrow's game. Let's just have the points table out though. I know for the uninitiated, of course, DC, MIGG in that order have made it through to the knockout games. Eliminator being played between MI and Gujarat, and Delhi Capitals, of course, through to the final, like the previous 2 seasons. RCB and UP Warriorz, unfortunately, the two sides missing out. Let's probably touch a bit upon RCB, Jeet, since Neha and I, we've spoken a fair bit about this. But not just about what went wrong. What did you make of the season? First of all, before before the tournament began, what were your thoughts on the side after the 5 injuries, and what did you make, or what do you make of it now at the end of the season?
I think before the injuries happened, of course, RCB stood a strong chance because वही core है जो retain हुआ है. They've got a sensational spin attack. They have the experience as well, right? Sophie Molyneux is there. Priyanka Patil has been doing a great job. Asha Shobna, Sophie Devine as well, for that matter. Injuries, I think, had a huge role in hampering their chances. And secondly, it happened to be a season where the batters couldn't quite step up, barring Elise Perry. I know others kind of chipped in here and there, but still, Elise Perry, the consistency that she showed was absolutely magnificent across every game. I mean, for her to put her hand up. Sadly, what happened with Mandana was that she went back to how the season one was, right? Even that season ended in a debacle for RCB. I think even back then they finished fourth, if I'm not wrong, or fifth, was it fourth, right? So even that season was not a good season for Smriti Mandana. She struggled. She couldn't lead from the front. Sadly, that replicated this time around as well. And then the kind of spin attack that they had assembled was, in my opinion, not quite good enough. Snehan, of course, was a late addition and she was sensational. But Charlie Dean coming in place of Sophie Molyneux itself didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, Dean, again, I'm not a massive fan of Charlie Dean. I've seen her bowl in the franchise tournaments, and that is 100. And she has not been a wicket taking bowler for you. Batting, she has improved a lot, but still, she's not that good a batter when it comes to the T20 format of the game. So it was kind of surprising. Baki, like for like, again, kind of made sense. I think Kim Garth was a good addition to their side. She was kind of unlucky. She was bowling really well in patches. TK Yama or deliveries that were being hit for boundaries because they were wavered. But other than that, she was bowling decently enough and she was not getting enough rewards for that. But overall, yeah, it didn't pan out well. Elise Perry, Richa Ghosh was sensational again. But besides these two, it was a struggle. It was bound to be. Sneh Rana happened to be a sensational find at the end of the day, but I think they had kind of lost the tournament right after those flurry of injuries that took place. Danny Watt Hodge is somebody that they would have expected a lot out from, right? Southern Brave में Mandana and Danny Watt Hodge have the experience of putting up great scores as a pair, as an opening pair, and they have been consistent. And that is something that has given Southern Brave a lot of success. So they were hoping that they would be able to replicate that over here for the RCB, but neither did Mandana have a good season, nor did Danny Watt Hodge. So udhar hi khatam ho gaya. Then they stuck with Ragvi Bisht. Now Ragvi Bisht again couldn't quite live up the way she was expected to at number 4. Performances Nia, she was struggling. What was weird was, when RCB were getting off to good starts, when they were 2 down, when they were losing their second wicket, the run rate would be good. Abhi, aise mein, why are you promoting somebody like Ragvi Bisht, who we know is going to take a bit of time to get going and then probably accelerate? You have Georgia Verem in your side. You know the kind of impact she could have. But wo bhi bhai niche hi aa rahi thi, and they kind of stuck to that pattern, stuck to that template and didn't work out well. But yeah, I think I would still say that they were kind of unfortunate with the injuries because the kind of performance that most of the players who got injured this season put in the last season, which was kind of their pillar in helping them win the title. And this time, most of them are missing. So I would still say it was a tad too unfortunate for them.
Yeah, for sure. And probably just another name I would add would be Renuka Singh Thakur, who actually had a more than decent season this time around. And if you compare it to, what she was like in the first 2 seasons, then to bhai matlab zameen asman ka farak hai wahan pe. But Neha, of course, last couple of games they decided to let go of Danni White-Hodge. They brought in Sabineni Meghana. What did you make of that? Because Samit also asks us, what do you think of her batting? Was it a one-off, or do you think she's really improved?
Yeah, this one I'm going to probably answer with a smile because I know the kind of opinions that both of you have about S. Meghna. But again, in all fairness, I think she did kind of step up admirably. Like a lot of people, including me, were criticizing her for her strike rate. But I think she did well. She got scores of what, 26 and 27, right, versus UP and Mumbai, and did reasonably well. I know some of her shots were again not very flattering, but it still got you those runs, right? And kind of takes the pressure off of Smriti Mandana as well. So at least kind of impressed in that front. I'm not sure if I'm answering Samit's question, like has she improved? Because I'm not sure what is the metric of improvement. Is it like last season? Then probably not, because again 2 games se tum kahan hi, like sample size is so small, right? To kind of make a deduction to domestics this time around, she didn't like set the stage on fire or something. It was just fine. And glad to see that there is a little more intent in, trying to get those boundaries and try to give RCB that sort of a start. Smriti Mandana, we know, right, kind of needs that partner uh, who can deliver from the other end, so she can also kind of rub off from that energy and do her thing, considering the kind of form that she has been. Even Smriti Mandana, right, this season, besides that 81 versus what, Delhi, and like last match, it's been kind of an up and down season for her too as well. So I'd still say S. Meghna has given us some hope that yes, there is some intent, there is some mindset to score boundaries. So yeah, I think she didn't do too badly.
Yeah, I mean, Jeet, again, just adding more to the Meghna bit, probably one big reason why Samit has asked that question, like several others. Last season, 5 innings, strike rate of 112. She averaged 33. That's where, like, it wasn't the average. It wasn't that she wasn't getting runs. She wasn't getting them at the rate required. She was fairly slow, and that's always been the case with her, at least for the last couple of years in the WPL. Usse pehle, I remember the 22, season for her. Even when she played for India briefly, she was pretty good for them. But this time around, strike rate of 212, two fantastic cameos, also complemented Smriti very well because she was attacking her matchup. Hayley Matthews this game, first game it was Grace Harris. So that was essentially the role, right? Even for Danni White-Hodge, the role was कि बहन आप बस 6 के 6 बॉल टिक जाओ, बस स्मृति को ऑफ स्पिन खेलने मत देना. यही game plan था. Unfortunately, Danni did not really stick to it. But do you think Meghna's improved, or it's just her sort of showing what she's actually made of?
I think you were spot on about that right arm off break matchup. It was the primary reason why she succeeded. But uh, I can't say whether she has improved or not. But I could spot one thing where she was going to the analyst and she was having a chat before she was walking out to bat. That happened in both the games. So I think there was a clear message that what potentially right arm off break will be bowled. Beat Grace Harris, beat Hayley Matthews, and that is where you need to capitalize. So I think the one thing that was really good, whether the technique is improved or not, that's a different discussion altogether. But the mindset was different this time. She was very clear in what she needs to do, the role that she needs to play as Smriti Mandana's partner. And she did that brilliantly, 26 and 27 are the two scores she got, but they were rapid scores. So I think she did a job. Technique-wise, look, I think the one thing that I've learned over the years is that even if you don't have the best of the techniques in women's cricket as an opener, you might still get away with it if you have got the intent. And that is exactly what happened here with Meghna. She doesn't have the worst of the techniques. Hey, of course, there are weaknesses over there. There are frailties that she has got, but thoda hai experience, right? She has played for India. She has the experience. I know she's very offside dominant against pacers, like side pe ghuma ke maarte against spinners, but she had that clear mindset, and I think that is what worked out brilliantly for her. Both the games, she took down that right arm off break spinner, and that worked out brilliantly. Hodge, I don't think she would have quite done that against the right arm off break as well as Sabineri Meghna was able to do that. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that it worked out for RCB last two games when it was done. But again, something that they could probably look into heading into the future, where that if you're facing a team like, say, Gujarat Giants, who has Ashley Gardner, MI, who has Hayley Matthews, and so on, then you can have Meghna as the batter who can tong that right arm off break spinner and protect Smriti Mandana.
Yeah, I mean, if she continues to sort of just keep playing this role, 10 ball 27 is exactly what I would want from at least one of my openers, if not both. आप ये करके out भी हो जाते हो ना. If you average 27 and have a strike rate of 200, 220, I'm
Yeah,
taking
job
it
done.
any day. Yeah. So I'm happy with her that way. And again, once again, very surprised. Speaking about technique, of course, those are just our personal thoughts. It does not mean that she cannot, do well or something. Danni White Hodge is another example. Again, not someone with the greatest of techniques. Just you have to figure out ways to survive. And so, of course, technique is not the be all and end all, and definitely not anything that is even considered probably in T20 cricket. अगर टेस्ट क्रिकेट फिर भी होता तो हम सोचते बैठते बैठ के सोचते कि यार क्या है टेक्निक एंड ऑल. हियर तो of course it's just me and my personal biases of course coming over. But of course, speaking of RCB and what they did, of course, couple of players did well, couple of them didn't do. But if you look at a side like the UP Warriors, who unfortunately finished last this time around, first season they finished third, second season they finished fourth, third season they finished fifth. Arithmetic progression खत्म यहीं पे हो गया है, अभी इसके नीचे नहीं जा सकता. I'm hoping a sixth team isn't introduced so that they slip into sixth next year. But Neha, again, a season of what ifs for them, right? They had the talent, they had the players, but somehow it just did not really click for them.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at UP Warriors, right, they were entering the season with a massive setback, losing Alisa Healy. I know she's had her own, patchy form, so to say, in injuries, kind of just plaguing her very existence. But then losing her was obviously going to be a massive setback. And then you had someone like Deepti Sharma step in. I had a lot of expectations from her captaincy, having led Bengal and UP now, in the domestic side of things. So coming and leading a franchise was going to be a massive responsibility. I think till the WPL was about to start, I think just like 2 or 3 days before they announced Deepti as the captain, and they just left us wondering like why was this happening. But I'm sure the decision was communicated like within the franchise to other players as well. But even the kind of team composition, right, that was chosen was very bizarre. Like I know you guys are not like fans of Chamari Atapattu, but then I really felt when Vrinda Dinesh was not performing, T-Mac was not performing, probably just giving Chamari one game would not have hurt, right? Because eventually they lost her because of the Sri Lanka New Zealand series and all of that. Later, I know Georgia Ball came in and did her thing. I think she was such a bright spot for them, irrespective of the kind of campaign they had. Shweta Sehrawat did give us some flashes of brilliance. I also felt like somewhere the captaincy kind of weighed down on Deepti Sharma. Last season she was the MVP, but this time around, just couldn't quite replicate or even come close to that sort of performances. Probably captaincy did have a say in that. Besides that, yeah, I mean, Sophie Eccleston did her thing. She got what 9 or 10 wickets, and as usual was doing her job. But you need support from the other end as well, right? Uh, I would still say like their domestic players like Kranti Gaud, again did well in phases, right? So that would again be another massive positive. But going into the next auction, I think UP will have to, I mean, invariably, I think for all the teams, they will have to press the reset button, be very strategic and mindful about certain retentions, and then kind of, build a squad around those players. So hopefully, they kind of make the right choices. But this season, yeah, I think they just registered 3 wins, of which 2 came versus RCB itself. They wouldn't really be happy with that. Hopefully, UP can come back stronger, but this season, I think, was kind of forgettable itself. Besides that super over win versus RCB, I think they'd just be like, nope, the season didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the fielding, यार आपको बस वो fielding का देखना है उनका, like, and you'll know how the season is panned out. Was just a reflection of their tourney, and yeah, it did not really work for them. But before we ask Jeet, Arun's asking us, please throw us some light on Jeet. I'm watching him for the first time over here. Of course, he's one of our more recent viewers. Jeet, आपको शायद खुद की तारीफ करने का मौका नहीं दूंगा. I'll only sort of tell. Jeet, of course, he's worked with teams. He is an analyst. He's worked with BCCI. He's worked with the broadcasters as well. Knows a lot of things about cricket. Someone I enjoy talking with. Someone cricket.com enjoys talking about cricket with. Was a part of our coverage last year. And if anyone from any of the teams are watching over here, please do hit Jeet up and do follow him on Twitter for some great takes. Also to understand why on earth UP Warriors consistently kept losing, barring the games against RCB. But yeah, Twitter पे शायद आपने बोला होगा, यहाँ पे भी. What did you make of UP Warriors and their season this time?
Look, I think one thing is for sure, खुद तो डूबे लेकिन RCB को ले डूबे. That was the season, and that is where the RCB fans would be so pissed. कि वो 2 wins उनके सामने ही आए, but I think there were too many wrongs here. I mean, it's tough to begin with. The Peace captaincy, I do understand, to be fair, but We have seen even Mandana didn't have the best of the seasons as a captain, right? So it's still a learning curve for so many of these players, to be in a franchise tournament and leading a franchise, and that's only going to develop. Bali experience to domestic level पे भी experience of leading Bengal, leading a franchise is a different challenge altogether, which has overseas players as well. और उनका अपना अलग वो पूरा रहता है manage करना. So it's going to be a challenge, and they will improve as the season or as we go along in the WPL, as we have more seasons. So I'll keep that aside. Dipti's captaincy, it's fine, can happen. But for me, I think most of the issues stemmed at the auction itself, and that was with regards to the spin department. Now, when you know that you have a squad and a kind of a playing 11 where two of the players will be a lock-in no matter how poorly they perform, and those two happen to be spinners. One is Dipti Sharma, the other is Sophie Eccleston. Kitna bhi khara perform kare, you can't leave them out. They are lock-in in your playing 11. So beyond those two, and knowing that somebody like Grace Harris is going to chip in, Chamari Aktabatu might chip in if she plays, and later on, Georgia Wall is a replacement. You'd probably have, a backup to one of the spinners, potentially a backup to Sophie Eccleston, and say either Rajeshwari Gaikwad or Gaur Sultana. But yeah, Rajeshwari Gaikwad, then they had Gaur Sultana, and they went ahead with Alana King as well. Abhi, it's tough to fit in, right, in the playing 11. Talia Meghana was fully out of form. But how do you leave her out? How do you get Alana King into the side? How do you get Chamari Attapattu into the side? If you leave out Talia Meghana, तुम्हारा pace attack गया. Shrilan Healthy came in as a replacement, ठीक है. But there was only Kranti God या फिर Saima Thakur को खिलाओ. But वो pace attack फिर भी ऐसा है. It's quite weak. So you had to continue with Talia Meghana for as long as you can. ठीक है. Second was, I think, the team management identifying that, right? Because if Alisa Healy misses out, you'd probably want a like-for-like replacement as an overseas player. Maybe Lizelle Lee might have chipped in. That's just one of the names that I could come up with right now. But they went with Chanel Henry, so there's potentially an indication that the management realized कि कहाँ हम लोग का बड़ा gap है. And that was the pace attack, right? So they needed somebody who could bowl 4 overs of pace and chill with the bat. And that's why Chanel Henry came in. You look at RCB, they had like-for-like replacements for the most part, barring Nusrat Parveen. Because even they identified where Richa Ghosh ही है as a wicketkeeper और कोई नहीं है. So कहीं ना कहीं they had to sign in another wicketkeeper for an out-and-out bowler or a batter. But for UP, it was Chanel Henry for Ali Saili, and that was an indication that the management realized that pace attack doesn't have so many options, so we need to sign somebody who can kind of chip in with 4 overs of pace. That was another issue that I probably had. Besides that, I think tactically they were probably not up to the mark. Batting wise, if you look at all the 4 teams, they had at least 2 players who scored 200 or more runs. But UP Warriorz was the only team that had 6 players who scored over 100 runs but less than 200 runs. There was not a single batter who touched the 200 mark. Even Sophie Eccleston was 98. So almost 7 players in the range of say 98 to less than 200. Nobody had a big season. So when nobody has a big season, it doesn't work out well, right? If Chanel Henry ends up being as a leading run getter and with the best strike rate, and I don't think that's a good sign. 163 runs at an, I think, strike rate of 198 or something. By that's not a good sign, right? So tactically also it didn't probably work out well. You look at the batting order as well, right? They were very, very top heavy when they especially moved Grace Harris to open as well. It meant they had Grace Harris as an opener, Georgia Wall as an opener, and then they were promoting Kiran Navgire. That was fine. But for middle order ka kya koi experience hi nahi. You can't look at Dipti Sharma, right, in the T20s. You can't bank upon her. Then you had the inexperience, pura middle order inexperience. You had Shweta Sehrawat, you had Vrinda Dinesh, you had Uma Chetri as well. Inexperience hi kya hai? Completely inexperienced, right? So तुम्हारा top order deliver करेगा, उसके बाद there is nobody can build upon it. Pura inexperience. So if you look at the numbers, their middle order was the worst in the entire competition, and doesn't even come as a surprise. ये होने वाला है because inexperienced are. You can't expect a lot out of them, out of your inexperienced batters. And similarly, the bowling plans also were like very well off. I've not been a fan of Grace Harris bowler. I've watched in the WPBL as well extensively for several years, and the one thing I picked up is that like she's good bowling post power play, but she's not your power play bowler. And sadly, ये एक tactic रहा है in men's cricket and women's cricket where teams want to kind of bowl their part time or give the first over to the part time and get away with the cheap over. 7 runs, 8 runs, it's fine. एक ओवर निकल गया because आगे जाके if your premier bowler gets back, then you'd have that 1 over covered by a part-time upfront only. But it could potentially be a reason where they would have used her as a matchup to left-handers because she bowled to Beth Mooney, she got her out. Then she was used against Smriti Mandana as well, where Sabineni Meghna took her down completely. But Pavli में 6 overs डाले, only 1 over was bowled to the left-handers. The rest 5 overs were to right-handers, and that is where she got whacked. So that's another thing that they could have probably looked into. Dipti Sharma, the death, has the worst numbers in the entire WPL history. She's bowled the most number of overs. I think one ball lesser than Jess Jonas, that's it. But after bowling like 24 overs, she has an economy of 11. That is so massive. By मतलब 23-24 over में you're conceding 250, 255 runs and average 25 at 28, which means you're not a wicket-taking bowler either at the death. It's slightly easier to get cheap wickets, right? So वो भी नहीं हुआ. So these are the kind of things that I would have liked them to have kind of identified as they went along in the tournament. But I couldn't see those adjustments coming that eventually pan out well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the changes, before we talk about it, Arun really wants to hear something from me, from Neha. So, Neha, one question to you, of course. Jeet also spoke about, Elisa Healy's replacement and Chanel Henry coming in. If you remember that episode, when we spoke about Chanel Henry coming in as Elisa Healy's replacement, we spoke about how that's actually great thinking because usse pehle bhi jab hum discuss kar rahe the, we always knew that their pace attack was practically non-existent. So they would have to shore up their reserves. Was Chanel Henry the best choice? That was a whole another argument. Just the fact that they brought in someone who could, add to their pace attack was a win in and of itself. But now in hindsight, having seen what you did of Uma Chetri and her keeping and the fact that top order maybe bahut mushkil hua, do you think maybe they should have just stuck to bringing in a like-for-like replacement? Lizelle Lee was a name that Jeet mentioned that we discussed. Amy Jones was another name we had discussed and all of that stuff. Do you think they could have probably just gone to a keeper bat and probably that would have added more value? Because, yeah, tum soch rahe ho, Uma Chetri ne jitne catches chhode, most of them were just regulation catches. Had you just scored all of them, you never know, that probably would have won you a game or two more.
Absolutely. And I think this does go back to my point, Akshay. I don't know if you remember, it was on the podcast or the Watch Along. I was telling, we really needed Lizelle Lee, a setup like this. A like for like for Elisa Healy would have really made sense. I kind of see the foresight with, the Elisa Healy replacement, like Chanel Henry coming in there because they wanted to shore up their pace department. It kind of made sense. And Chanel Henry too delivered, right? Back-to-back games in that, in the Bengaluru leg. I don't know, like absolutely decimating bowling attacks. And this was against Delhi, right? Like on consecutive occasions. So she kind of did her job. But probably a like for like as you said, Lizelle Lee and someone I had been vouching for in the WPL for the longest time. I hope when the sixth team comes, wherever it comes, or even in the next auction cycle, if that team doesn't come, some team should go after her because she will add a lot of value to your top order. I know a lot of people, comment on like her probably not being fit enough and everything, but guys, just go see her, do her magic in WBBL. I think she is spectacular, right? So that clearly is not a pointer people can use to not include her. So probably UP could have benefited from that. And even I think through the season, they were kind of experimenting with their opening combo itself, right? We had Kiran Navgire and Brinda Dinesh open. Then you bring in someone like the Grace Harris, then Georgia Wall comes in. So you can clearly see a lot of instability. And a lot of it also kind of boils down to the kind of coaching philosophy that John Lewis has, right? Man's coming from like women's ashes where his team has lost like 16-0. I think it does have some psychological ramifications. When you're coming into a franchise tournament, again, your job is on the line. UP Warriors has not won a WPL so far, so he had a lot to prove, right, this season. So in that sense, yeah, like for like, again, just coming back to your original question, Akshay, a like for like would have really, really made sense. Happening this way that somewhere the think tank trusted their Indian core to do the job, especially in the first few matches. It was a very top, top order Indian core heavy, right? But it clearly didn't work out, and you sort of saw them bringing in the reinforcements, but it was honestly too late. They'd lost a lot of matches, and UP was, I think, in fact, the first team to even get eliminated, right? So this was clearly one of the seasons where they'd like, boss, let's just put it in a box and never look back at it. But I hope they come back strong and make some wise purchases and retentions for the upcoming auction. Yeah.
I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves with the Warriors was right after the auction, and it now continues to be the case even after their season ended. They went up to 1.7 for Deandra Doughton and ended the auction with a purse of 3.5 crores. They took that money with them back home. उन पैसों का आपने क्या क्या पाब्लो एस्कोबार जैसा जला के मतलब आग कुछ क्या क्या सेखा क्या अपने हाथ उसमें कि क्या क्या why like for me the biggest reason why I thought UP Warriors needed someone like a Deandra Doughton was T-Mac's batting had always been in a downward spiral since that 2023 season. Sure, that first season she was fantastic for them. Their best batter, if I remember correctly, averaged in excess of 50, was consistently scoring well for them. Last season, 5 games, average of 6-7, strike rate in the 70s. She just couldn't get going. In fact, she had to be dropped mid-season because her batting was not anywhere close to where they wanted it to be. And it's not like auction ke time pe bhi unka batting bahut zyada kuch acha tha. That's where someone like a Deandra Doughton would have been a great fit. That way, they didn't have to force themselves to play Talia Meghana for her bowling alone. Like, all I have to say is, hypothetically, instead of say Alana King, if they went for someone like a Deandra Doughton, their 4 overseas could have been Grace Harris, Deandra Doughton, Chinel Henry, who came in later as Elisa Healy's replacement, and you had Sophie Eccleston. That would have been a much well-rounded batting lineup, first of all, with an informed Deandra Doughton chipping in regularly. And on top of that, Deandra Doughton, the bowler, would have been far more effective, according to me, compared to Talia Meghana. New ball के साथ आपको value मिल जाता, death में भी एक आध over वो डाल सकती थी. She would have been a much better option for them. And again, the reason why I stress on that is the fact that 3.5 crores, yeah, that's 1/6 of your purse. Who leaves an auction with 1/6 of their purse intact? What are you going to do with that money? तुम हजार करोड़ खर्चा करके टीम ले हो मेरे भाई, ये आप 3 करोड़ बचा के कुछ नहीं किया आपने. So that was my entire issue with them. Sure, I mean, I'm guessing they were trusting Kranti Gaud and all. Great, up lagao, bet lagao domestic players pay, but at what cost? You cannot just expect to take certain bets and expect it to come good for you. So that's where I hope they are a bit more smarter and they just don't rely on their domestic players to come good. Like maybe Gujarat is a case in point. Sure, they also have gone for a lot of inexperienced youngsters, but they've sort of managed to combine it with experienced informed overseas players. That's where the youngsters also have a bit of a greater margin for error. They can aram se settle in and play their game. यहाँ पे वो था ही नहीं. यहाँ पे now it almost seemed like अगर ये लोग रन नहीं बनाएंगे, वृंदा दिनेश, उमा छेत्री, किरण नवगिरी, श्वेता, हाँ, या तो ड्रॉप हो जाओगे या फिर मतलब टीम बढ़ेगी नहीं. They will lose the game. I don't think that's the kind of responsibility you can place on players like these right now. They're still developing. Kiran, maybe you can remove Kiran from that list, but Shweta ho, Uma ho, Vrinda ho, it was a tad bit unfortunate. I was hoping that maybe responsibility might help. A lot of hindsight bias, of course. Jo bhi kehna, a lot of it is, of course, in hindsight. But yeah, I wish they probably were a bit more smarter in how they constructed their squad. But yeah, I mean, one season, of course, done and dusted. Let's hope next season they can do well. And yes, Jeet.
I think the one lesson for the UP Warriors to learn out of all these 3 seasons is to be a little bit more aggressive at the auction table. Because one thing you mentioned was correct about the underdog, but another thing is also the domestic players, right? You talk about each of the franchise and the kind of batters that they've got on top for. They're star batters, star Indian batters. RCB have got Mandana and Ghosh. DC have got Shefali Verma, Jamima. GG have Arlene Deol, which is the other thing. MI have got Harmanpreet. They've got kind of Yastika Bhatia who can chip in as well. But for UP Warriors, you cannot look at any such name. I know Dipti Sharma, but you can't look at her as an option, right? So I think it's one of the lessons for them to learn. Just be a little bit more aggressive to kind of have the player that you want, have the player that is in your plan A. It should not fall to plan B, plan C. Because across these 3 seasons, for me, the UP Warriors, if I think of UP Warriors, and they have built an identity of a team that invests a lot in youth. And I'm not, look, even if the numbers don't back them up, I think some of the scouting that they've done has been phenomenal. Kiran Navgire has been really good. Shweta Sehrawat, I know she hasn't got good numbers, but she's really talented as well. Vrinda Dinesh as well is outstanding. She's got a wonderful future as well. ठीक है यार, numbers stack up नहीं करेंगे, but they are genuinely talented. Kranti Gaur also we saw, right? If you just go by Kranti Gaur's T20 career numbers, they are horrible. Listi Acha, and I think on the back of that she was picked, but she has got the talent. So the scouting has been phenomenal. But it's about those big names, the big names that you can trust who have proven performers as well. I think that is where they need to be, really aggressive at the auction, be it the domestic players or the overseas players. Domestic अब नहीं हो सकता है, वो गया जो core season 1 में build करना था, हो गया. That's out of the table, right? It's not on the table at all. But the overseas players, maybe at the mega auction, you will probably have the choice. The retentions, I don't know कितने होंगे, 3 होंगे, 4 होंगे, जितने भी हो, but there will be big names that certain teams will have to release. And that will be UP Warriors' best shot at kind of developing a very, very stronger team.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it has to be a mix of both. That's all we're saying. It can't be just big names. It cannot be just, inexperienced youth. You need a bit of both. And you see even Emma, you see RCB, you see DC even. There is a mix of both. That's what works well. You can't just stick to one and expect, again, putting all your eggs in one basket is definitely not the way to go about, the WPL at least. So, they can kya hota hai. Next year is the mega auction fixed. Yeah, as things stand, that's what we can say, because technically 2026 is when a sixth new team was also supposed to be added. If a sixth new team does come in, then you would expect that a mega auction will happen. Why would a new team enter without there being a mega auction? It'll be very unfair on their part. So dekhte kya hota hai. As things stand, you can expect a mega auction to happen. Arun has been wanting to ask us. We'll take this question before we talk about this week's top performers. On a lighter note, Jeet, who do you think is more animated between Akshay and Neha? Is that even a question? I'm hoping this is rhetorical, but what do you think, Jeet?
भाई पूरा वॉच अलोंग किया यार मैंने आईपीएल अक्षय के साथ. मेरे को पता है आरसीबी के मैच के टाइम पे क्या होता है. So I don't think there is a comparison. Dude, most of the RCB games, so I've seen it. RCB CSK bhi, I know भाई क्या हुआ था. So why it's not even a competition here. Why easily Akshay, especially on RCB games. I'm sure even Neha is an RCB supporter, so her emotions also come out during the RCB games. But by Akshay, hands down.
Okay, I'll wear that as a badge of honor for now, but thank you for that. To me, Kashvee Gautam is the find of the season with a lot of variations, and she's looked good with the bat as well. We'll actually talk a bit about that later on. Firstly, top performers ki baat karte hain. Quite a few performances. We had a tough time trying to narrow it down to just 5, but we have managed to. Neha, Georgia VOLL, your favorite performance of last week. Why did you like it so much? It was against RCB.
Yeah, this is honestly a tough one to pick, but then Georgia Ball really made a case for herself, right? I mean, just look at this 99 coming of 56 balls. Again, the boundaries that she was striking, she got what 17 fours in just 1 6. Goes to show you can actually construct a T20 innings without having to just go slam bang and always for the sixes. The way she was rotating the strike, taking those twos, she was looking tired, but then she kind of persisted with it, was unbeaten till the end. I think I absolutely loved her innings. In fact, I think as RCB fans ourselves, we were rooting for a century because of how quality that knock was, right? Really helped UP even post that massive total of 225. Unfortunately, another record versus RCB. But it was really, really a good knock. All the partnerships, right? Starting with Grace Harris, then with Kiran Navgire, with each and every batter who came in later as well. She just kind of held her ground. And this was probably just her third match in the WPL, and the kind of maturity she displayed at just 21 years. I don't want to jump the gun and be like, she's a generational talent, one to watch out for. One to watch out for, definitely, because she's kind of done the same heroics for Australia against India as well. But I think she's really made a case for herself, and I wouldn't really be surprised if UP goes on to retain her as one of the players they would want to keep in the scheme of things going in next year. So this knock has really, really made a case for that.
I mean, big words those, and I sort of agree. There's one more bit to add. That knock was actually one of a kind. She is a leg side dominant player. Itna to WBBL or जिन्होंने वो series भी देखा था against India, you could see a bit of that. But the way she was actually playing around with the field, a lot of people were blaming Smriti and the bowling and all. Sure, of course, no one's saying that was perfect. But even the good balls were dispatched there. Balls that were almost Yorker length on the stumps were reverse swept. Balls that were outside the wide line on the off stump were somehow pulled past the square leg fielder. So just the range she showed was so good to watch. And again, she's just 21. It's almost scary how good she's looked as a youngster. So fingers crossed, UP Warriors will be able to hold on to her, for the future. And she can, potentially become the kind of player that we were talking about, that UP Warriors need. So fingers crossed for that. Of course, next player will have to be Harleen Deol. Fantastic innings versus Delhi Capitals, helping Gujarat Giants chase a total of 179 against them, against all odds, if I may say so. Because for most parts मेरे को तो लग रहा था कि भाई जो भी होना ये मैच नहीं जीत सकते. A lot of people felt कि नहीं, they seemed comfortable and all. I mean, Harleen Deol is not your regular attacking batter. She's not exactly known for that. So for her to be able to do something like the 70 not out of 49 in a pressure situation in a chase, innings builder hi dekho yaar. First 10 balls 12, next 10 balls 13, then 15, then 30 runs in her last 10. Just going on to show that she had those gears. She paced it beautifully. At no point in time did she seem struggling. She always managed to maintain a strike rate of about 125, 130 for the first 20 balls. And then post that 10 over mark when, the run rate was actually going up, she made sure she never let it really go out of their hands. Attacked the bad balls and again looked very calm and composed. And unlike the hurling that I've seen in the last year or so, for Gujarat Giants or India. So very surprised, have to bite the egg off my face as well, because I for one did not think she would be able to pull off a knock like this right now. So that was great to watch. It also bodes well for India because India be not just in ODIs T20, as maybe there is a bit of transition. They're looking for batters in the top three, in the middle order potentially in the future. So someone like her doing well consistently will, make sure ki India does not feel the pinch of that transition. So very good to watch, and hopefully और भी ज़्यादा performances उनके बल्ले से देखने को मिलेगा. Third up, of course, it has to be none other than Kiran Navgire. Jeet, you spoke about her briefly earlier on. Happy with how she's done so far?
Oh, for sure. Like just how you mentioned about Harleen and her chances for India, I think Kiran Navgire has been a big question as well. I've still got no idea how she hasn't made it to the national side, on a regular basis. We've had the last few T20 World Cups and all that stuff taking place in familiar conditions, and you need that spin hitter or you need somebody who has the ability to clear the ropes. Ek to chahiye chahiye the team. I know that she has established herself as somebody who can whack spin. I think this season what stood out was her ability to take on pace as well. I know it was not 100% in terms of control that she had, but some of the deliveries that she was backing, she was smashing short deliveries. I remember that bouncer from Elise Perry that she was able to nail over square leg. So she's working on it, and that's very, very visible, right? So it's been good. This knock in particular was outstanding as well because Grace Harris was off to a good start. And people are saying that, Kiran Navgire is continuing from where Grace left. No, I think she took it at a different level altogether, right? She took it to a different level, a big part. Grace Harris had a strike rate of 178. Kiran Navgire stepped in and ended with a strike rate of 278. So she amped it up big time, big time. And that was that one game where the UP Warriors were nailing their batting order one after the other. So I think it was a stupendous knock from her. Initially, I was surprised that UP Warriors are opting for her as an opener when she has established herself as somebody who bats spins. So probably number 4, number 5, or even that entry point being adjusted depending upon when the spinners are operating. But she did a very, very good job. Baad mein theek hai, number 3, number 4, jahan par bhi aayi. But I think it was a very good season for her. Average wise, I know she doesn't live up so well in the entire WPL career, probably around 17 or 18. But it's a strike rate, right? With somebody like her, you always look at that part of the column that is over 140, and that is what is really refreshing to see from an Indian player.
Yeah, I mean, just one more thing to add to that. Elise Perry, that was her first scoring shot. Short ball, I'm guessing she also expected. It was telegraphed basically कि किरण नवगिरे आएगी, सबको पहला बॉल शॉट ही मारना है, बाकी जो होगा देखा जाएगा. So she was expecting it, but despite that, the way she was able to execute it, not just then, even against MI, if my memory serves me right, 2 pull shots off Nat Silverbrand, both were sixes. Good to see that she's now looking to attack the short balls and not just try to evade them or look very uncomfortable against them. So that's a very welcome sign, and hopefully if she does get much better at it, you never know, the India call-up might not be too far away. So fingers crossed for that, of course. But coming to the next player, who is the next player? There we go. The next player is none other than Hayley Matthews. Neha, an all-round performance from her against the UP Warriors.
Yeah, I think this was one of the performances that definitely had to make the list. Very deservingly, Hayley Matthews won player of the match, contributed with both the bat and the ball, right? I mean, with the ball, she got the wickets of Grace Harris and Shweta Sehrawat. And somewhere the season has been very interesting for Hayley Matthews, right? I mean, we haven't seen the same kind of dominance that we saw probably in 2023 and 2024. But slowly, she's kind of coming into the groove, contributing and chipping in as much as she can. And I think even chasing chasing, right? Chasing 151. She did a really good job. She kind of held one end because, again, Amelia Kerr was dismissed earlier on. Nat Brand was, kind of giving that impetus to the innings, but couldn't really sustain. So I think Hayley Matthews' knock was extremely important for, Mumbai to kind of just get that win. And I think, again, the way she was, just piercing the boundary and just making the most of everything and all the partnerships she kind of struck on the way. I think it definitely had to, make it to this top performers list. Hopefully, Hayley Matthews can come up with more clutch performances like this, as the season kind of progresses. And yeah, she's definitely, one for the list here.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get to the last name, sports fan talking about Bharti Fulmali's knock not making it to the list. Unfortunately, Panchi performers le sakte hain. And like Arun mentioned, of course, the only way we prioritized was, performances that came in winning causes would be given priority. But I know it's a tad bit unfair. It's not a reflection of their individual performances. We'll have to draw a line somewhere. That's all I can say. So let us see. And coming to the last performance, though, has to be one that I never saw coming. And this wasn't even a first 3 for, this was a second 3 for RCB alone, but 3 for 26 in her 4 overs that included both Hayley Matthews and Amelia Kerr. Again, Jeet, both of us wanted to talk about her, but Sneh Rana has been a revelation this year. Yaar.
Yeah, I'm very pleased for her. And the kind of efforts that she is putting, heading into this WPL has clearly shown, the kind of tweaks that she has made. First 2 seasons, she just had like 6 wickets and she bowled over like 200 balls. In this season alone, bowling after this for what 81 balls or something, she's got 6 wickets. So a phenomenal stuff. Batting mein theek hai, do innings mile, but we saw one of the knocks, right? The kind of impact that she had and the way she took on Dipti Sharma, and that was a splendid knock as well. But coming to bowling, I think it's as we have been wanting to discuss the kind of tweaks that she has made, right? I've heard that she has worked with Ashwin and everything, and I don't know whether that has been the reason why these kind of changes has come or not. But the way she's using the crease, not laterally, but the length of it, the 22-yarder that we often associate with Mark Watt, the way she's using that has been brilliant. And Wapa, she's blowing it up. And that is where she's deceiving the batters. So yesterday it was very, very evident with the batters probably not being prepared. I don't know how, because you'd probably expect कि अगर कोई अपने season का third या fourth game खेल रहा है, you probably know that this is the kind of change that that particular bowler is brought in. So you should be well prepared for that. Hayley Matthews still fine. He was deceived as well, but it's still okay. It is understandable. She was trying to stay on the back foot and put the ball. She couldn't get the elevation or the power on it. But Amelia Kerr fell for it. She used her feet trying to generate that power. She couldn't get to the pitch of the ball. She was undone by it. The same thing happened with Yastika Bhatia as well. The only batter who was able to pick her really well was Nat Brand. Besides her, nobody was able to play Sneh Rana the way she should have been played. So good on Sneh Rana to kind of make these changes. Of course, another big thing here being that she was solely operating from around the wicket. So that was another very interesting angle that she brought into play as well. Bowling it across the right-handers, bowling those arm balls. So that was another very smart thing as well. Something that we don't see so often, right? It's not something that is so often in WPL or women's cricket in itself, wherein right arm off spinner balls from around the wicket to the right-handers and everything. So very good changes. I'm just happy that this kind of performance has come right now, because of course she is overlooked for the auction as well, and now for her to end the season, even though it didn't pan out well for RCB, it's Sneh Rana that has definitely made a massive impact on her, and that is probably going to have good influences on her selections heading into the future. So really happy with her.
Yeah, I mean, and in all fairness, I wouldn't blame any of the teams. You could see where the teams were coming from, and none of them went for Sneh Rana. First 2 years, whatever you'd seen of her, and in general, whatever you've seen of her, you knew ki yaar, matlab, there's something missing. And you saw that oomph, you saw that X factor very much in the first game she played this season. Like the way she played. You spoke about her bowling around the wicket. I wish I could get some numbers on that. Number of balls bowled around the wicket in the first 2 years and this year. I can bet my money on the fact that this year alone she's bowled more around the wicket than the first 2 seasons combined, because we'd hardly seen any of that variation. Jeet spoke about taking it across the right hander. We saw Amelia Kerr, of course, stop edging it. That's how she was also able to get a few of her wickets against UP Warriorz in her debut for RCB. Apart from that, when necessary, she was also willing to bowl those defensive lines. Just bowl it a tad bit outside the leg stump, target the legs, and not give any room, crap the batters. And the 22 yarders, yaar, more than the 22-yarder itself, it's the sheer frequency with which she kept bowling. It wasn't a one-off thing that she bowled once or twice a spell. She was bowling it regularly, almost twice or thrice every over. And the game we went for, RCB versus Gujarat, we saw Sneh Rana bowling 22 yarders for RCB. We saw Tanuja Kanwar bowling 22 yarders for Gujarat Giants. And I just kept wondering, is there any, like, have they thought it through ki how do they mix it up? Yeah, फिर वो just vibes पे जाता है, gut feel पे जाता है. But irrespective, it's worked out brilliantly for Sneh Rana. She bowled amazingly well. I wouldn't mind going as far as to say that Team India call-up potentially could also be not too far away. Shriyanka Patil isn't fit. Deepti Sharma hasn't been in the best of form. They are looking for spin bowling all-rounders. 26 of 5 against Deepti Sharma in that game. I don't think this will be forgotten by people very quickly. So she's not done herself anything wrong, by performances like these. So fingers crossed, we'll get to see a lot more of these. And yeah, I mean, historically, RCB has always been known for being a franchise जहाँ पे players आके हक के चले जाते हैं. Good to see कि यार जो भी हो ना अभी that pattern slowly is changing. So happy for her and fingers crossed, she continues to do well. Red ball में तो करती ही है, white ball maybe for sure. And Arun, of course, I completely agree with you because I know how clear I was कि यार Sneh Rana T20 material नहीं. I'll own my words. I agree. I said that, and I'm more than happy to go back on it. But I still would say I don't think I was wrong then. I don't think I'm wrong now. She has improved as a bowler. We have to accept it and we have to be happy about it. So, of course, he goes on to say, I remember Akshay saying, or rather being defiant when I said early on in the tourney, Sneh should be playing. Akshay was saying that in T20, Sneh isn't effective. Of course, glad that Sneh helped me prove Akshay wrong just for fun. Akshay, no worries. Completely agree with you. It's all fun and games. No offense taken. Don't worry. Just one last question before we wrap today's episode up, which has been fantastic. And all of you folks, CT is Yada and area, please make sure you hit the like button, guys, and make sure you subscribe to us. We will be doing a watch along for tomorrow's game. It is MI versus Gujarat. It'll be fun. It's an eliminator. The winner goes through to the final to play on Saturday against the Delhi Capitals. जिसके लिए हम लोग फिर से watch along करेंगे. So it'll be the final two watch alongs of the season 3 of WPL. So make sure you guys tune in. तो उससे पहले please like the bado. There was a question by sports fan that I thought I'll say for the end. Where is the question? Is all I'm searching for. Okay, yep, finally found it in time. Who's been the most improved Indian batter this season? I'll probably just extend it and say who's been the most improved Indian player this season. Not just batter, across departments. Who do you think has been the most improved player? Neha, you can probably go first.
I mean, right at the top of my head, I'm thinking of someone like Harleen, guys, because coming into this, this WPL, I was thinking, maybe we'll again see a few middling knocks from her. Gujarat is probably not going to even qualify because I think in our predictions too, we probably didn't really peg Gujarat to be one of the teams to qualify. So for me, I think it has to be Harleen. I see her take a lot more responsibility, actually bat well and deliver. I know thoda recency bias are there that 70 of 49, it was also part of our top performers list. But for me, Harleen, definitely, I think she has just taken up more responsibility. Excited to see how she, kind of translates this form over to India as well. Again, she's coming from a century from India and in the WPL doing well. So again, would like to see that. So at least for right now, I'd probably stick with Harleen, but I add on another player once I think more about it.
All right, and Jeet, what about you? Just before that, Akash, we will take this up as well. We'll ask Jeet this question and before we go. But yeah, Jeet, who's the most improved player for you?
For me also, it was Harleen Deol only. I know I can't think of a lot of players who have, substantially improved. Indian players, that is. Barring Harleen. Sneh Rana, of course, we discussed about her. But again, short sample sizes, so you probably wouldn't really want to go for her. But Harleen Deol, of course, being a massive change because, when this tournament started, on the face of it, seeing a top order of Beth Mooney, Dayalan Hemlata, and Harleen Deol did not instill a lot of confidence in me because I was like, that's three batters who bat very slowly. So it's not probably going to work out well for you. And that did kind of start in that pattern only, but it was only Harleen Deol later on who picked it up so well. That 70 was, I think, game-changing in her, trying to be really aggressive. And because we've often talked about, right, T20 is a format where you'd probably not be so content with Harleen in your side. Because she's got the technique, but she doesn't have the gears to go through, right? She doesn't have gear 5, gear 6, kind of take on the game, hit those quick sixes and find the boundaries. She's somebody who will probably nudge it around for ones and twos and everything. But we have seen that definite change, and that change has not been the consistency, but the intent. So purely for that matter, and the kind of impact that she has had over the last 2 or 3 games is perhaps one of the key reasons why I would say her being the player was improved a
Yeah, I
lot.
mean, हरलीन स्ने both are great shouts for me. Again, bias हो सकता है पहले से disclaimer देके रखना, but Renuka Singh Thakur, I was genuinely happy for her and happy with her performances. From averaging in excess of 150 in this first season, 140 in the second, to averaging 21 in the third, and also economy of 7.8, 7.9 when the oppositions were more than happy to attack her, was really good to watch. थोड़ा movement भी मिला, and we always knew कि movement जहाँ पे मिलता है, Renuka is one of the best bowlers of swing bowling in India right now. So it was always a case of कि यार conditions मिलेंगे क्या वैसे. But outside that as well, even in Bangalore, when she had to bowl second every time, जहाँ पे उतना movement नहीं मिल रहा था, she actually bowled great lines and lengths. Probably she could have been a bit more accurate and cut down on the number of wides bowled. That's me nitpicking a bit, but apart from that, all in all, she was bowling great lines, great lengths. In swingers, some of the cutters as well, which I was surprised with. Haven't seen her bowl too many of them. Something that she must have developed this season. So was very happy with her, and yeah, fingers crossed once again that she will do a lot better for Team India as well. World Cup year, albeit a different format, you always want to see some of the Indian names do well. Arun also agreeing with me, so thank you for that. Of course, Amanjot Kaur was another name mentioned. Southern, for some reason, decided to talk about NSB when we talk about the most improved player. NSB is nowhere close, but sure, we agree with you. She plays fantastic cricket, so no two questions about it. Just one last question Akash had to ask Jeet. Were you impressed with Kashvee Gautam? And do you think India should tread that line cautiously by not overplaying her and ensuring that she develops into a great all-rounder?
Oh yeah, she's a good shot because I remember it was probably back in 2020 where she had taken those 10 wickets in the game, if you remember. Now I know that came against a team like Arunachal Pradesh, but I'd watched those clips and I was like, yep, that's a very impressive bowler to have who can hoop the ball back into the batters, and she was cleaning them up. Again, ठीक है भाई, quality Arunachal Pradesh, I get it. It's going to be a lot more easier, but with these in-swing bowlers, it's always going to be a challenge, right? Even Lauren Bell was in a similar mold back then. You're going to probably drift the ball down leg side quite often. But now with Kashvee Gautam, there has been a much better discipline that I've observed. And the fact that she has improved her batting so well is also something that works in her favor. So I definitely agree. I mean, probably somebody who can be looked into as a player that should play for India, probably in both the formats of the game, not red ball yet, but at least in the white ball format, she could be a very, very valuable addition in both the facets of the game. Pooja Ostrakar, of course, has been up and down, having injury concerns. So Amanjot has improved. But for, again, Amanjot is somebody who's probably going to take the ball after the power play. But if you want new ball wickets, if you want somebody who's slightly quicker than Renuka Singh, then I think Kashvee Gautam is a great shot for that. And again, valuable addition down the order as well. So probably not far away India call up. And I think it should work out really well for her.
Yep, I mean, I would just probably add to that that Amanjot is more of a bits and pieces all-rounder that way, and more of a batting all-rounder in some sense. While on the other hand, Kashfi is, more of a bowling all-rounder, and definitely bowling is, her bowling is something that you can, pick her alone on. You don't have to even depend on her batting, but great to see that, of course. Neha, any parting thoughts on that? Do you want to see Kashfi Gautam play the Tri-Series in Sri Lanka this month, or rather later next month?
Honestly, I'm tempted to see India kind of include her for this tri series. I think it'll be a wonderful exhibition and just give us some idea of how she can fare in India colors before the elusive World Cup, right? Because I mean, it's a World Cup year. You would want to experiment with as many players, just give them the chance, and then eventually kind of shortlist key boss. These are my this is my squad of 15. Kashmir has really made a good case for herself, and with India being very unpredictable with Arundhati Reddy and Pooja Vasrakar, I think Kashmir Gautam is your next best alternative, and you should give her a chance. Please don't do it like 8 series before the World Cup. Do it right away because there's still some time till the World Cup. Initially, I had my reservations. Are we just pushing her to international cricket too soon? Are we just getting carried away with her WPL performance? But then it's the Indian think tank. They will do things like this, and players still find a way to perform and do their thing. So yeah, I would really want to see Kashvi in this tri series, and hopefully she can put up a really good performance.
Yep, on that hopeful note, I guess it's time for us to end this episode. Thank you so much for all of you tuning in, of course, and thank you so much for all the love. Please make sure to hit the like button, and also before that, do follow us on all these respective handles. It is at JeetV0811. I hope I got that right on Instagram, and at Jeet27WC on X. Never on the back one on X, of course, for Neha, and you know mine, of course. So please do that. And yeah, make sure to hit the like button. We will be back tomorrow with another watch along. It's the eliminator between Mumbai and Gujarat. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great evening and have a great, great, great dinner.